Bumi here, and I would like to just read from my book, Joyful, practical tips that have helped me thrive while trying to conceive. And, I just feel that I should tell you why I wrote the book, which is also the reason why I started this channel. Right, so why I wrote this book. It's not a coincidence that I'm writing this book. I toyed with the idea to write it, and I'd mentioned it to a few people who thought it was a good idea. But something else that made me figure that God wanted me to do this happened the very day that I decided to take a pen and paper and write down my first few thoughts. Just the outline and the topics. Without intent to use any particular book, I found the negative test result of my first IVF that failed, tucked away in between the leaves of the particular notebook that I picked to use. That IVF was done in 2020. So if I was going to yet procrastinate again regarding writing this book or regarding starting this channel while waiting, I had to push in my hands. I had the push in my hands staring me in the face, and I believe it's not a coincidence that the notebook I had picked on the same day was the same book in which the results were tucked into. So here I am. So for a bit of story, I got married in 2013. My husband and I are in our 9th year of marriage. But that's when I wrote this book in 2020. And we're currently trying to conceive, still trusting to conceive. So sometimes in the course of this book, you may find me using the term mother in waiting, referring to a woman who's trying to conceive, or people in waiting. And that is because when a couple are trying to conceive, both the man and the woman are expectant because they are on the journey together. The proof of this is that when the baby comes, the children don't belong to the woman alone, but to the couple. What thoughts are leading me to write the book? And these same thoughts, honestly, are what have led me to starting this channel. I struggled with starting this channel. I said to the Lord, hey, so answer my prayer first now. Then let me start this channel. Even when I was writing this book as well, but I know when the Lord is speaking to me. And here, this is one of it. So, what thoughts are leading me to write this book? I've been struck by how easily a lot of us, mothers who wait, literally will put our lives on hold because we are trusting for a baby. We put our lives on hold and leave other parts of who God has called us to be and sent us to be on earth to lie fallow because we're waiting to conceive. We will just fret, sit on it, and just wait. We tend to allow ourselves to be bogged down by pressures, whether personal, self-imposed timelines and undue comparisons, or external, either societal or familial influence. I've seen too many women whose lives have been put on hold on account of this, and to my mind, this is clearly not right. I believe that while waiting and expecting to conceive, we must be expectant as well, and that's why that I prefer to say trusting to conceive as against trying to conceive, right? And so I'll continue. I believe that while waiting and expecting to conceive, we ought to be living our lives, not living an anyhow life, but living the life that God has called us to optimally live for Him. While we wait, we must be seen to be maximizing the life that God has given us and leaving no stone unturned. I believe strongly that this is what God expects of every woman that is in waiting. We should be in control of our emotions and go on to excel in other areas. Let me pause here and say that I understand that may be tough. I understand that may not be so easy. Obviously, you are going to be able to, when I use the word, putting it aside, that's going to be emotions that you've mastered. So one of the things to help is to try to first understand our emotions. If you don't understand it, there's no way you're going to master it. So it starts by understanding our emotions, and I'll do a video for that. So when you understand your emotions, then we're then able to master it. That's the only way to be in control. Right, I'll go on. We should not be found missing in providing solutions to needs of humanity in our different spheres of influence, in our societies and in our communities and general environments. We can go on to be captains of industries even while we wait. We can go on to be global leaders. We can go on to be world changers even while we wait. We can go on to be leaders. We can go on to be anything that we want to be, even while we wait. Even while we wait, despite and in spite of the wait. Waiting is an active word. It is something that you do while you do something else. I like the way that Joyce Meyer puts it in her book, How to Be Led by the Spirit of God. She gave an analogy of a person who has a busy day ahead and is expecting a weather forecast in order to make necessary outdoor preparations, like whether the appropriate clothing to wear, whether to know whether to spread clothes outside, or all of that. Now, Joyce Meyer tells us that this person will probably put on the radio. So if that's what the person is expecting to hear the weather forecast from, the person is going to put on the radio or maybe on the TV. But that person is not going to sit down and fold the hands and say, oh, I'm waiting for weather forecast. No, the person is going to put on that TV or that radio while trying to listen out for it. But the person is going to be doing other things while waiting for that forecast. The person will probably just, most importantly, be sensitive. The person will keep their ear open. You know how that you are expecting a guest, right? And then you would sort of listen up, while you're doing other things. You're not going to sit down by the door. You're just going to keep your ear open for the doorbell. And guess what? A few times you're likely to miss it as well. You're likely to go to the door and say, I thought I heard the bell ring. Or maybe if somebody was to say, no, the bell didn't ring. Right? That's the same posture of waiting. So we may think that we heard a few times, or you may, make that mistake. But guess what? That is the way. Nobody sits and wait for their friend who's coming to the house, or nobody sits and waits for, the weather forecast, right? So it's the same way. The person, I go back to reading, the person will probably keep his or her ears open while moving about within the vicinity, probably doing other also necessary things. Assume that this person is you. You would either be picking up your house chores or doing other things, but your ears are primed towards the television or the radio set, so that once the weather report comes up, you would pick it and then you move on to do other things. In this same line of thought, a mother would not sit idly by her baby's bedside while the baby sleeps, just waiting for the baby to wake up and then to be picked up. No, she gets on with catching up on other errands, doing other things, cooking, while her ears are on the ground to pick up the baby's wake up sounds while she's dealing with other tasks. So waiting to conceive is clearly not different. For those of us who will be reading this book and who are believers, if we take a cue from ourselves as children of God on this earth, we all are waiting for the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. We would know that Jesus would come again and would anticipate rapture and his second coming, but our hands are not folded. I like the way some preacher puts it. He says that we're not eternally focused yet earthly useless. No, we are focused on eternity, but with that at the back of our minds, we do things differently while on earth. So we're relevant on earth while we keep, in fact, if anything, our posture and how that we act on earth is based on eternity in view, and is in the same way that we wait also. I go on. I'm a professional pharmacist. And I've spent about 12 years out of my 17-year career span in community pharmacy. Obviously, it's more than that now, right? So I would say now that I have 17 years community pharmacy experience. And as I reflect on this journey, I figure that beyond writing a book to encourage and to ginger or to motivate others, I need to start with the most important person, which is myself. I need to walk the talk, not just in the face of my first monthly flow or period, but also in the face of the IVF procedures that failed. In the course of putting up this book together, while I was writing the book, I did a second IVF. And unfortunately, that failed as well. But does that mean that God has forgotten me? For me, one of the takeaways from this journey is that God is using me to be a light. It's not easy to turn on the camera and speak to you while waiting. In fact, if anything, almost everybody that would speak to you, I think I know someone like myself now, found my tribe, thankfully. But before then, I don't think anybody is talking about waiting while still waiting. Everybody gets to the end of the tunnel and then speaks to you about it. But I thought differently, that there is need to, while in the tunnel, be able to speak to you, because if you are on this same tunnel with me, the perspective that I give you would also help you to understand and to navigate this tunnel as well. So I think that God is using me to be a light. And if I didn't go through this process of waiting, truth be told, I would not, for instance, have been inspired to put this book together. And so for a lot of us as well, God is calling us to be a light for those that are waiting as well. Remember that the waiting, the posture is important. And so how that you wait will be an encouragement to someone else. I said here that there are others who are not there yet, but who may make a stop at the waiting station as well. One of the reasons we go through things is so that we can have the requisite tools to encourage others like ourselves in this situation. Don't waste your pain because it may be a good benefit to others. And of course, I take myself as an instance in that scenario. I'm not wasting my pain. I'm sharing this with you so that I could encourage you as well. So I've written this book because I would like to help women like myself who are trying to conceive to look inwards at other abilities that God has put in them and to stand on their feet while waiting. Like I said, there is a tendency to sit and wait and do nothing and just fold our hands. Waiting is a posture, and sitting and getting obsolete is definitely not a good idea. If you're trying to conceive, waiting to conceive, this book will help you navigate the waiting season. And so I invite you to refresh your thoughts and your mind. There is so much more that God has sent us to accomplish on this earth besides procreation. I say that with all humility, but I repeat it again. Refresh your thoughts, refresh your mind. There is so much more that God has sent us to accomplish on this earth besides procreation. And I say that with every sense of responsibility, but it is the truth. God has commanded us to occupy. One of the dictionary meanings of occupy is to fill up. If you were to be poured out, how would you fill up all the jars that God has endowed you with to fill? Or would you allow the thrones of limiting mindsets cheat you and limit you by just sitting and staring at only the jar of procreation, while other jars are opened unto you? I guess I'll just end this. It's a long read. And there is the final thought, really, and I'll just like for you to ponder upon it. If your life were to be a jar, are you only waiting to pour into the jar of procreation? Or are you looking at the other areas of your life as well? And are you bringing, yield to the master? Think on this, and God bless you. Cheers.